So I express my delight to have this opportunity to address you again here at this vihara here in Kuala Lumpur. And of course it's a very wonderful to see so many people interested in Buddhist teachings at this time. It's a very ancient religion. It's gone through many years of successes and failures. And read the history of Buddhism from the time of the Lord Buddha 2,560 years ago to the present moment. And we realize how it spread over Asia and then declined, but it never reached there's no real records or sense of any great interest in Buddhism in the Western world until fairly recently. And so it's very interesting for those of us who are brought up in the Western world, in Christian, Jewish, or modern atheist scientific societies, why we become interested in Buddhism at this time. Because many people, when I first told friends that I was a Buddhist, they said, well, why are you going backwards? That modern science is what's progressive, and that was probably, they're being patronizing, so they're saying that's probably good for people in India 2,500 years ago. But what has it to offer modern day people in London or Kuala Lumpur or Bangkok? And in Thailand, of course, it's 95% of the population see themselves as Theravada Buddhists. So Thailand is, you get a whole sense of a Buddhist culture there, because the culture, Thai attitudes are so integrated within the Buddhist tradition. But I became interested about 60 years ago in Zen Buddhism. And the thing that interested me, the thing that moved me when I first encountered Zen Buddhism, this was in the 1950s, 1955, and I was in the U.S. Navy in Japan, and then there was a growing interest in Zen Buddhism on the west coast of the United States. So this interest was, the style of Zen Buddhism was one of reflection. It wasn't, most religion, I was brought up in a Christian family where you're very much told what to believe. And so you come from a very dogmatic faith position, which as I grew older I couldn't sustain. I was too skeptical and too critical to just believe because I was told to. Where in the Zen Buddhist style there was this kind of challenge to consciousness, to look at, to examine, to investigate, rather than being told what you're supposed to believe in and what's right and what's wrong. This is what inspired me when I was 21 years old, 1955. And then it was rare, I didn't have any friends, any acquaintances at all who shared this interest. In the Navy, if I had Buddhist literature around, the people, the other sailors would think I was a bit odd, a bit crazy, because in the consciousness of modern Americans at that time, Buddhism had nothing to offer. It was just a religion in Asia. But nowadays, Buddhism is something that is highly regarded. Like my years, I lived in England for over 30 years, and amount of interest in Buddhism, different forms of Buddhism, Theravada, Zen, Tibetan Buddhism, Mahayana Buddhism. Why is this interest, suddenly, in 60 years, that's not a very long time compared to the age of the Buddha Dhamma as expounded by the Buddha. And in Theravada, the reason, I became interested in the Thai form of Buddhism, Theravada Buddhism, was because I was inspired by Thailand, being a Buddhist country, and it had a warm climate. And in Japan, I remember the cold winters there in Japan, when I was in the Navy, and then I heard that the Zen monasteries didn't have any heating in them. And so, it's not, I didn't convert to Theravada Buddhism out of some doctrinal discovery, but just for the sake of Thailand had a better climate. But then in Thailand, I found the good teachers, and in my second year, in 1967, I met Luang Por Cha, and his whole style of teaching was very suitable for someone of my character. At first, I went there. He couldn't speak English, and I couldn't speak Thai. So, many people, both in the West and the Thai people themselves, have asked me, how could I learn from somebody who we couldn't converse in any language? And the first month or so that I was with Luang Por Cha, this was in 1967, there were 2 Thai monks who could speak English. So they didn't stay there very long. They lasted a month and left, and then but during that month, I had opportunity to listen to Luang Por Cha's teaching through translation. After that, I had to really learn how to speak Thai. And then in Northeast Thailand, they speak a dialect, so it's a very frustrating, confusing situation to be in. But that's not the problem, being confused and frustrated, because Luang Por Cha's teaching, and this is the teaching of the Buddha himself, because Luang Por Cha was emphasizing the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, the first sermon of the Four Noble Truths. And of course, the First Noble Truth is something so common that it's easy to understand, that there is suffering. And so this isn't about, suffering in an external way, being persecuted or from things outside. It's the suffering we create around our feelings, through our thinking process. How we think, we see things we don't like, we feel aversion, we have fears, we have different desires, anxieties, worries, anger, jealousy, greed in many forms, and confusion and frustration are common to all human beings. This isn't about Asian frustration. This is about frustration that we all feel. And so the First Noble Truth isn't about an ancient religion in India, but about the human condition itself. So after the Buddha's enlightenment, he thought to himself, how can you teach Dhamma? Dhamma doesn't have any language. It's here and now. But it's beyond language. Language is limited to thinking about yesterday, today, tomorrow. It's based on time and perception and sensation and feeling. But consciousness itself, we're all experiencing consciousness at this moment. So this is a fact. This is something we can all verify, each one of us sitting here in this hall, is that we're conscious. Is anyone here not conscious? So this is, and it's very, consciousness is a word in the English language which is not understood very well in Western terms, in Western science, psychology, Western culture, because we tend to, I was brought up to think that consciousness is within the physical body, limited to the physical body. So there's a sense of consciousness is mine, it's in my brain, and it is limited to the form of the human being, male or female. But that's not Buddha Dhamma. And the Buddha taught that consciousness has no measure, it's beyond measure. So the four immeasurables that the Buddha pointed to, the first two is space. Space, is a perception we have with seeing. It has no limit, it has no quality other than spaciousness. And consciousness is not a perception, it's the reality of this moment, that we are conscious. The form that we have, the human form, the human body, male or female, is in consciousness rather than consciousness is in the body. Now, when you reflect on what I've just said, this isn't dogma, it's for reflection. Things come together in a different way. When we see each other always that my consciousness and your consciousness, then there's this division, that I'm some separate being, you're someone else, and everybody else we're all separate. And then there's this feeling of fear, anxiety, of separation, of loneliness, because this sense of separation makes us feel very vulnerable, because the human body itself is a very vulnerable form. But when we reflect from the Buddha Dhamma position of consciousness being unitive, one rather than separate, not limited by shape or form. It's not male or female. It's not Asian or Western. So it's like universal. This is a sense of unity rather than separation. Now, modern Buddhists, usually in the Western world, are educated people. So modern education is, the development of the thinking process, reason and logic. So we acquire knowledge from books, from teachers, external to us. So we're operating always from the sense of wisdom is something I've got to get from outside that we find in books or philosophies. That wisdom is something that we have to have and get through study, through reading, through acquiring knowledge from external sources. So the whole sense of separation and division is the reason why, we suffer so much, because we feel, isolated within a delicate, fragile human form in a vast universe. Remember in Thailand, early years, looking up at the sky and feeling, what is it all about? The stars and the moon and the kind of vastness of this whole universal system. And then myself as a human body, a Buddhist monk in a Thai monastery, felt quite vulnerable to all the forces that I couldn't understand or even see or know about, but were generating things like this, the sun and the moon and the stars. And this is through the thinking process, through thinking is the function of thinking is to discriminate That's what it does. And so we're educated to discriminate. This is right, this is wrong, this is better, this is worse. And the whole thinking process, when you observe it, is about, division. So when we think about ourselves, when we think, that in the terms of I'm this human body, I'm an American, I'm a Theravada Buddhist monk, I'm a Thai monk, or whatever way I think of myself is a convention, a thought process that's part of a convention. But through reflection, through bhavana, through meditation, you begin to see through these conventions. They're not absolute anymore. You're not limited and bound to the thinking process, to the thinking habits, to the emotional habits you've acquired. Like when we reflect on the First Noble Truth, there is suffering. The Buddha's not saying suffering is absolute reality. It's not the Dhamma, it's not a negative statement. It's pointing to the reality of something we can all easily relate to. We look at our own sense of fragility, or the way we worry about our families, or regret things we've done in the past. We have a lot of fear. There's a lot to fear as a human individual, because we have quite delicate bodies, easily damaged, and the law of the jungle and the powers of nature seem to, be overwhelming compared to the limitations we find ourselves in when we identify with our human bodies. So what the Buddha, the kind of key, the real essence, the heart of the Buddha Dhamma, is this word mindfulness. And this is the translation from sati sampajanya, satipanya, the Pali words, which mean mindfulness, awakenness, openness, where wisdom then can inform us. So the Buddhist teachings, they're all pointing at wisdom, at the present, at the here and now. They're not, like the Four Noble Truths aren't doctrines that we believe in. Nobody's asking you to believe in suffering, because we can see it very directly. It's ordinary. So, the Buddha, after his enlightenment, is very interesting. This is the only religion that had taken something nobody wants and puts it in the category of a noble truth. Because none of us want suffering. We want happiness. And so, it's where other religions start from a very high point, from belief in an absolute deity and God, or something very high up that we either believe or disbelieve or just don't think about it, because it's too high. It's the top of the spectrum. It's beyond. You can't prove that. You can't take God and show it to everybody. But suffering, why did he give his first sermon to the 5 colleagues, 5 friends, the Panchavaki? Why did he give his first sermon not about universal love or ultimate reality, but taking the most banal, ordinary human experience, dukkha or suffering? And so this fascinated me, and Rinpoche was always coming from this reflective state encouraging me to observe because at first I created suffering around adjusting to life in a Thai forest monastery. Something I'm from the city in the United States, and suddenly you find yourself in those days, Northeast Thailand was the third world, definitely. And so there was no electricity, no luxuries, no conveniences. Then I grew up in a city where, you just take everything for granted. Electricity was there, from day one. So you feel this, you create suffering around wanting something that you don't have, or not wanting things to be the way they are, like the mosquitoes. And there are a lot of mosquitoes at Wat Pah Pong, and I didn't want them. But the reflection isn't, the reflective style of Luang Por Chah is to observe that not wanting something is suffering. Not wanting things to be the way they are is suffering. Wanting to get something you don't have, like, I'm an American, so it's a very goal-oriented society. You're always trying to prove yourself, and everybody's equal in America, but we think we want to be better than others. So you have this conflict of the ideal of equality, at the same time dealing with your own aggressive, competitive tendencies, which are trying to be a winner or be better than somebody else. Well, all this is, like Western society, the American society is based very much on ideals about how things should be. We should be equal and fair, and there should be no slavery, no persecution. The ideals of freedom and to see, to speak, to act according to your own desires and so forth are very, are based on ideals. But in the Four Noble Truths, it's not about ideals, about how things should be, but about the way things are. So Luang Por Chah was very good at pointing that out. When I complained about Wat Pah Pong, he said, about the mosquitoes, he said, but this is the way it is. So, in an ideal world, there wouldn't be any mosquitoes. But in the reality of this moment, I don't know any of these mosquitoes right now, but in Wat Pah Pong, there are mosquitoes, lots of them. And so, this is, and then suddenly you kind of get the point, not wanting these mosquitoes was the suffering more than the actual annoyance that the mosquitoes create. And so this is like a reflective style. You're observing this. Now the second noble truth is about getting to know desire. It's about the cause, the origin of suffering. Suffering isn't ultimate, reality isn't permanent. It's anicca, it's impermanent, it's not self. So, the second noble truth is about the Dhamma, desire that we have through senses, through seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, through, it's a sensory world of that we're living in a sense realm. We're experiencing sensitivity, like the human form, the human bodies that are seen are totally sensitive conditions. The seeing is sensitive, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching. I mean, the sensitivity doesn't mean just, pleasant sensations. Isn't it? There's pleasant ones, and there's painful ones, and there's neutral ones. So the awakened state of mindfulness is recognizing desire. We're not trying to get rid of it. It's not an annihilation of desire, but a recognition of desires like this. kama tanha, or desire through senses. So we see something that we like and we want it. That's kama tanha. Or hear sound, beautiful sounds, or we hear cacophonous noises that we want to get rid of. So, this whole sense realm is about pleasure, pain, and neutral feeling. And this is the way it is. It's not saying anything wrong with it, but it's opening to the reality of life as we're experiencing it. So then, in the monastic life, there's a lot of, the second kind of desire is bhavadana, desire to get something you don't have. And so, I saw myself as somebody, an unenlightened person, and I wanted enlightenment. And then you read in the scriptures or Visuddhimagga about jhanas, you want to get jhanas. They sound like something you really want to get. And then the 4 stages, stream entry, once returner, non-returner, arhat, you want to get that. So then so just the structure that we use, just through the words, through the Four Noble Truths, even for the 4 stages, the 10 fetters, the way we talk, the limitation of language is like this. It creates this desire. Some desires are like altruistic desires. To become an arhat is a good desire. Wanting to get rid of anger and jealousy and fear seems like something noble. I don't want to feel anger and mean-hearted or jealous or frightened. I want to get rid of those emotions. So the second noble truth is a really brilliant invitation to investigate desire. And so where at first I thought Buddhism is about getting rid of desire, so you don't have any more desires. But that's not the way things are. This is a desire realm that we're experiencing. The human body's desire form. The eyes, the ears, the nose, the tongue, the body, the thinking mind, the emotions. It's all desire based on pleasure, pain, neutral feelings, sensations, experiences. So that, this is the awakening then isn't about getting rid of or controlling everything, like becoming a monk and thinking you've got control over life better than a lay person. So you've got rules, you've got tradition, you've got symbols surrounding you, you've got a lifestyle, and then you can get rid of anger, greed, and fear, and so forth. But that's not what happens. The whole invitation of Luang Por Chah was to observe that. And like this Four Noble Truths teaching isn't about getting rid of desire, but understanding. It's not about getting rid of suffering, but understanding it. And to understand something, if you really want to understand something, you have to accept it for what it is. If dukkha or suffering, usually we don't want it. So when we feel insecure, worried, or whether it was physical illness or disabilities or just too hot or too cold or mosquitoes or whatever, we want a world without mosquitoes because they're annoying. That's a desire. And our relationship to desire then is to understanding. It is the way it is. So I spent many hours just contemplating, wanting to get rid of the defilements, the kilesas, wanting to get rid of them is like this. wanting to become a stream enterer, a sotapanna, feeling that I'm unenlightened, and like one of the brilliant techniques of Luang Por Sumedho was to always throw you back onto yourself. Because, when I first met him, I consider him an enlightened master. He's my teacher. He knows me better than I do. So I projected that onto the figure of Luang Por Sumedho. He's the master. I'm the unenlightened student. I'm the disciple. And on a conventional level, that's fair enough. That's called conventional reality. But in reflective meditation, in contemplation of the way it is, when I imply to Luang Por Sumedho, he knows what I'm thinking, he knows what I need more than I do, and he knows where I'm at, he'd always make me look at what I was doing. Projecting something onto him, that he knows me better than I do. And so it kept throwing it back on me because I actually believed that. And I started questioning, is that really the case? Because at this moment, each one of you knows what you're feeling at this moment. If you observe, I can't tell what you're feeling. But you certainly know. And it's like this, whether you're feeling happy or interested or bored or confused or whatever. I'm not asking you that you should be feeling any particular feeling, but let's face the fact that I know what I'm feeling right now. And if you observe, you're aware, say just the feeling of interest or confusion or whatever you're experiencing from my talking like this is like this. That's consciousness. It's because it's the reality of consciousness, aware. Where when we take the feeling as personal, then it becomes more than what it is. Like, if I'm feeling interested, and it's because I'm interested, I'm as a Buddhist monk, I'm interested in what I'm talking about. But actually, there's interest in Dhamma, but it's not identifying it in a personal way. Just like the body itself is the way it is. And so we identify with the human form, with our human form, strongly. So this identity with the human form is the first fetter of all the 10 fetters to Arahant, level of Arahant realization. First fetter is called Sakkaya Ditthi, and that is the habitual, unquestioned identity we have with our physical bodies. So in this kind of practice, in bhavana, in meditation, mindfulness meditation, we explore the body like a supa practices or anapanasati or all these basic kind of techniques that are taught in the Theravada tradition are really kind of investigating the reality of how we assume the body is personal, is self, or the feeling of love and hate, like and dislike is personal, is my, or that my anger is my problem, or my fear, jealousy is mine. We create that sense of our personal identity with it. When there's pure awareness, pure mindfulness, without adding anything, then it is the way it is. Like fear is like this. Aversion, anger is like this. Greed, sexual desire, confusion, whatever it is, whatever you're experiencing is the way it is at this moment. And that's a truism, isn't it? How can it be otherwise? What you're feeling at this moment is like this. The awareness of that feeling isn't anger, isn't angry. You know, like if you're feeling angry or whatever you're feeling, awareness, consciousness doesn't get angry. Anger is a condition that depends on other conditions for it to arise in consciousness. So this is where mindfulness takes us to conscious awareness here and now. And they talk about the Dhamma being timeless, a Kalika Dhamma. But you can't think of timeless. You know, what is, because thinking itself is about time. But through awareness, through mindfulness, then we begin to realize apparent here and now, santitiko Dhamma, apparent here and now is here and now. It's not somewhere else. Timeless, it's timeless. When you try to think of apparent here and now, where is it? Then you're getting lost in the thought process. Where is the Dhamma right now? You know, and then we, you know, when you try to think about it or find it as something, you know, that you can identify or define in some way, you can't do it. But it's conscious awareness. It's here and now. It's like this. It's silent. It's empty. It's non-personal. But it's real, ultimate reality. So when Luang Por Cha, rather than playing my games of, you know, with him, because on the conventional plane, was always kind of encouraging me in a very good way to observe what I do, what I project, how I create a Luang Por Cha, a teacher, create myself as unenlightened, ignorant student. These are thoughts, these are things that I create in my mind. I create Luang Por Cha, I create myself. But the awareness of this is impersonal. To become Ajahn Sumedho, I have to really think I'm Ajahn Sumedho. In the reality of it, on the conventional level, we use the title, you know, so it's, you know, fair enough. It's Ajahn Chah's always emphasizing this samut satcha, or conventional reality, and then paramatta satcha, or ultimate reality. So we're not dismissing conventional reality, but we're no longer believing in conventional reality is ultimate reality. And this is wisdom, to discern ultimate reality, to know ultimate reality, because that's what we really are. The ultimate reality is here and now, timeless. Translated, encourage investigation. There's this ehipassiko, and the Pali word ehipassiko is like a invitation to come and see. Here and now, like wake up here and now. It's not practice hard and you'll find it in the future. Upanaka, and then looking, you're not sending your attention outward anymore. You know, looking for the Dhamma as something you can see or hear. But you're observing this. So it's looking inward. You're stopping this continuous outgoing energy towards this attentive to the way it is in the present. It's like this. So this is, you know, in the the Thai forest tradition is very good at this, and this is what's so attractive about it to the Western world, because it's a meditative tradition. It's actually putting into practice the Four Noble Truths, and taking that teaching of the Buddha, which is like the Pariyatti Dhamma, or the scholastic side, is recorded in the scriptures. So we have it as a study, you can study Pali, you can have translations of it in English, Chinese, or whatever, but it's still sankhara. It's still acquired knowledge. And so then the Buddha encouraged patipada, or practice. So in the Four Noble Truths, you have three aspects to each truth. The first aspect is always the Pariyatti aspect, the statement from the scripture, there is suffering. So that's what you get from reading the suttas, or the Four Noble Truths. You get that information from outside yourself. And then the second aspect is what they call patipada, or bhavana, or meditation, practice. And so then this is to understand suffering. So, in terms of understanding suffering on a personal level, that's not it. It's not why I suffer or who's to blame for my suffering. It's a shift from seeing suffering as just reacting to it through seeking happiness or distraction or blaming others or situations, to observing suffering. There is this. This is the second aspect of the First Noble Truth, this is a reflective practice. This feeling of, I'm a foreigner in a Thai Sangha is like this. Or I don't understand what they're doing, it's like this. So feeling frustrated when you're trying to learn Thai and adjust to a totally different lifestyle, your emotions different emotions arise in consciousness. And then I was encouraged to observe that. So the conformity, I knew I needed to learn how to conform to something rather than just doing it my own way. That's the American style, do it my way. I did it my way, it's great. On Donald Trump's favorite song. But in Luang Por Sumedho wouldn't see it that way. I wasn't doing it my way. I had to, and I knew before I met Luang Por Sumedho, I knew I needed that kind of humility, to conform, rather than just do it my own way and do what I felt. You've got this conceit that you think your way's better than their way. And that was another thing I became aware of, the conceit of being an American is part of a culture. So there's always this reflection, because the second fetter, from Sakya Ditti, which is about the identity, the ego, the sense of I am this, I'm a man or a woman, I'm this age, I'm young, old, I'm attractive, unattractive, I'm black or white or beautiful, whatever. We identify always, we create this sense of our identity with the body. And then there's Silapata Paramasa, which is a mouthful of Pali words, but means like conventional conditioning, cultural conditioning. So like here in Kuala Lumpur, your culture, Malaysian culture, Chinese culture, influence, Buddhists being brought up as Buddhists or as part of a cultural conditioning. That oftentimes we acquire when we're innocent children. It's not something we choose, but something that is part of what we're learning from. in particular social situations or nationalities that we're born into. It's like this. But awareness itself, mindfulness, is no nationality. It's not Asian or European. It's not male or female. But it's here and now. Santitiko Dhamma, I call it, it's timeless. And mindfulness is the way that we can realize that, know that ourselves, rather than just believe what the Buddha said in the scriptures. So it's not a matter of believing there's no self. I don't have any self. If you believe it, not ask you to believe that, but it's to find out for yourself. So it's like to be realized individually. This is something you know through bhavana, through meditation. It's no longer just what you're culturally conditioned to believe or disbelieve or personal. Not sakkayaditthi, not silabhata paramasa. The third fetter is vicikicca, translated as doubt. And doubt is, the problems of doubt in educated populations is phenomenal. Living in the UK for so long, teaching meditation to people who are educated. And they're not Buddhist usually, the British that come and want interested in meditation. So they have a lot of doubts about Thai Buddhism, Thai culture, the way we keep the Vinaya, the different forms, there's a lot of opinions about different Buddhist groups, about Tibetan Buddhism or Mahayana Buddhism, and all kinds of this information is so available in English language. And in Britain you've got, it's multicultural country. So you've got every kind of form of Buddhism represented in London, for example. From the traditions of Tibet or Thailand or Sri Lanka, or Burma, to modern takes, modern forms of, psychological Buddhism and therapeutic Buddhism. It's open for any kind of interpretation. It's all available in the West, which it wasn't when I first became Buddhist. But because of my good fortune, finding a teacher like Ajahn Chah, because I could, his whole style was not confrontational, was not trying to tell me what I should do or, persecuting me if I don't conform, but getting me to look at what I'm actually doing, what I'm thinking. And this takes you to inner silence, as you begin to realize the true nature of consciousness is stillness, silence. It's peaceful. Consciousness is what we really are. It's peaceful. The bodies are not peaceful, or the sensual world, through seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, thinking, feeling. This is always changing. That's anicca. All conditions are impermanent. So it's not peaceful. You can have moments of kind of peacefulness, but then it changes, the conditions change. So, we were at Borobudur a few days ago in Indonesia, and at the dawn, climbing to the top at my age, that's hard work. And on the very top stupa, it's it's not Parinibbana, it's Mahaparinibbana. And at the very top of this beautiful monument, and at dawn, and then the feeling of the silence, the stillness. But there were a lot of people around, a lot of tourists. Now it's a very popular tourist site, but still I felt this sense of just this stillness and peacefulness. That's, that this monument represents. You can't live in Borobudur. So you have to travel back to Jakarta, board a plane, come to Kuala Lumpur, and so forth. But peace is the true nature of consciousness. So once you begin to recognize that, realize that for yourself, and this is what proper meditation, right meditation does. It takes you to the reality, ultimate reality of, that we begin to recognize through this awareness, through mindfulness. So when the Buddha was enlightened, and according to the scriptures, he gave this statement, Aparuta de Sangamata ora, the gate, the door to the deathless is open. And then, Aparuta de Sangamata ora, yesodavanta bamunjantu satang, those that can realize this, trust it. The gate to the deathless, what is it? It's mindfulness. The deathless isn't something you find, something that you don't have, or that some people have and others don't. It's not the prerogative of an arahant, a realized human individual. But it's all the time, here and now, timeless, encouraging investigation. And so, this talk this evening is to encourage your confidence in meditation, in the Buddha Dhamma, because it's a teaching that is timeless. When you think of religion, and so much of it based on historical situations, things that happened hundreds or centuries, thousands of years ago, doctrines that were that people believed in Middle East or in India or here in Malaysia. And so one can be interested in psychology and philosophy and different religious traditions and views about God or atheism. These are thinking. This is about what we think about, or we are interested, or we see no point in learning about that. Or maybe we're not interested in ancient Indian culture. Some people are. But the Buddhist teaching isn't about ancient Indian culture. It's about here and now, about the human condition that we're experiencing at this very moment. So that's why it has a message for the modern time. Because this kind of exploration, investigation has not been encouraged, especially in the Western world. Scientific investigation is all about going outward, talking about going into outer space, to Mars. It's all the outward movement that the modern science depends on, is seeking, the minutiae, the great, the magnificent, or the microscopic. But in terms of Dhamma, we're not encouraged to go outward, but to go inward. And so this mindfulness has this sense of embracing. It's not looking out at something or expecting or analyzing anything. It's not seeking anything outside, but observing this state of attentive awareness. Learn to trust that. Learn to recognize it, because it's not something you don't do, but we have not really developed this kind of wisdom learning yet. So, in spite of all the kind of fantastic, miraculous technology that is produced now by scientists, it's all outward. it goes out into, the idea of going to Mars seems to be an obsession with some people. But, in the photographs we get from Mars, it doesn't look like a very nice place to live. Well, Kuala Lumpur is much better. So instead of seeking, freedom and peace on another planet, you don't need to go that way. But to learn to trust, it's a matter of trust and observation of openness. Rather than getting something you don't have, it's like letting go of the things that you have that you're holding on to, that bind you to mortality, that fix you in a limited form. It's not denying the form, but it's the opportunity we have to release that grasping, to let go, and realize the true nature of peace is our true nature. So there's a new Ajahn Jayasaro, one of the monks, British monks in Thailand. He's just completed the biography of Luang Por Chah called Stillness Flowing. It's a very good title because that describes the kind of the essence of Luang Por Chah's teaching. And it's a very well written biography, and it's good to see the actual. He really investigates and expounds, the kind of training that we went through in the early days with Luang Por Chah, the kind of, views that people had and the tradition that was a part of our experience. So that's something to I think it's increasingly available in Malaysia. So I offer this as a reflection for this evening.